Pule Letshwiti-Jones is back with us. Pule, you've been gone for some time now. Have you managed to find anything else out?
Well, Shahan, what I can tell you right now is that we just bumped into the SAPS spokesperson, Vish Nandi. We tried to actually run after him and catch him, but he just walked away so quick. We couldn't even try to get a word saying he's coming back now. He will be giving us official comments at any moment from now. But, just as we were speaking before the network actually went down, what we understand here is that, there are quite some few demands that the Liberation Struggle War veterans have put on the table, such as that 4.2 million rand gratuity fee payout, of course, as well as houses, medical care services, and of course bursaries for their children. They are saying that this was part of the consensus repatriation agreement that was had between them and of course the Deputy President in his capacity as the chairperson of the task team heading that portfolio, which is looking into the concerns of the military veterans. Now, you would also ask yourself a few questions as to whether this was a last desperate move attempt, because from Tuesday, when we actually started tracking the story, we spoke to that fellow you just spoke to right now, Shahan Lwazi Mzobe, who is a national coordinator of the veterans, saying that their last resort would actually be to cause chaos, and crucially saying they are from the struggle and they've been in the trenches before and they know how to deal with these matters. Not quite saying their last resort would be violence, but what we are seeing right now was, of course, a stem of violence which they actually carried out to try and intimidate the ministers to give in to their demands. Now, when we spoke to them earlier on, what they practically tabled for us was that the reason why there was an altercation is because, firstly, one, they were expecting the Deputy President, David Mabuza, to come and address them, like I've said, in his capacity as the chairperson of this task team. But two, they also saying the ministers, including Thandi Modise and, of course, Mongli Gugubele, were clueless of what was going on, and therefore they had to go back and, of course, consult with the Deputy President. So they were of the view that this would take more time. But thirdly, they were saying that the government refused to give in, saying there wasn't any money or resources to grant them that favor which they were closely looking at, and therefore this is what caused the altercation. At around 6 o'clock, we understand there was a break that took place, and then later on again, before stepping inside, what we are aware of is that that's where that altercation came through, whereby they were actually saying that they're not taking any of it anymore and they resorted to violence.
Yeah, and of course this is not going to end, because Lwazi says that the ministers, and I quote, chowed their money. They believe that the state is not willing to give them what they deserve, and until that happens, this is going to be an ongoing battle. So do we know whether they'll be more satisfied, Pule, if the Deputy President actually holds these discussions, since they were not happy with the two ministers who were sent?
Well, one thing we should also be aware of, Shahan, is that previously when we spoke to these disgruntled veterans on Wednesday, they were actually trying to, carry out the legal route. In fact, they were talking about taking the ANC to court over what belongs to them. Now, we are aware of the ANC not being the problem, or rather being the organization that has put them at the stage, but they were quite upset and saying that even if it's both the party and government, they were willing to do that. In fact, you'd remember that the ANC national spokesperson did say on eNCA, confirming that the protests had stood down and saying that they had reached an agreement. But that's not the case. In fact, we came down again and spoke to the disgruntled veterans, who said that that was not the case and that there was no agreement that was reached, and therefore you would basically see that there was a sort of a breakdown in communication that had been going on from Tuesday evening, when these veterans did refuse to actually evacuate the premises of the ANC headquarters, being the Thule House in Johannesburg. So there's been quite, dishonesty that's been being told to the public here as well, and this is the reason why this matter has escalated to this kind of problem, where we are seeing now ministers being intimidated and their lives being placed at potential risk. And as it is right now, the veterans have vowed to actually continue with their struggle. In fact, it will be actually interesting to see whether they will be sticking to their guns and actually, going to court over this matter as it unfolded right now. But, what they're saying is that even if the Deputy President had to come down and address them and speak to them, they're saying enough talking. In fact, they now want, the payouts to actually now be on the roll and other demands that they've actually called for.
Yeah, and of course we are seeing that the Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, has given an account of what happened at the St. George's Hotel earlier during that meeting between the Presidential Task Team on matters of military veterans and the Liberation Struggle War veterans. So this is what I'm going to try and do, guys, and I'm sorry I'm doing this live on air. I'm going to try and play this clip until we get it onto our system, just so that we can hear the audio of the Minister's account of what happened. Hopefully the sound is good enough, but Nape, the technical director, will tell me if it is audible, right?
Tonight, myself, Minister Mutiso of Defense, and the Deputy Minister, Tabang Makwetla, we found ourselves in a situation which I consider untenable, legally unacceptable, where we thought we were in a meeting whose intention was to attend to the problems that affect military veterans. We could not agree on how the meeting should take place. We reached a point where I thought we were agreeing that it should adjourn. As we were leaving the meeting, proceeding to the doors, they closed the doors. It is at that point when we realized that we were held hostage. It's a situation which was averted by the security forces very effectively and successfully. We want to thank Minister Pekitele and all other security forces, whatever branch that was involved, for prompt and timeless intervention and successful in the manner it seems to have been. And we expect the law to follow its course in dealing with the behavior of this nature.
All right, that's the message. It's actually a video clip from Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele. It's been sent to us on our telephones. Our team is now trying to turn that into our system. We'll bring it to you live as soon as possible. But I wanted you to get a first-hand account from the Minister about what happened inside. So that was the audio that I was playing from my telephone. Technology, right? It's great. The Minister, if you just missed that, is saying that they went to that meeting because the Deputy President couldn't. They couldn't agree on how the meeting should take place. And when they tried to leave, they were held hostage. This contradicts what Alwazi from the veterans actually told us now. He said they were not held hostage, but the Minister is saying that they were held hostage. He does say, though, that the situation was averted by security forces, and he would like to thank them for handling the situation the way they did. Our teams are live on this story. We're live at St. George's Hotel, right? So we're going to try and get more information. I'm told that the National Police spokesperson, Brigadier Vish Naidu, has arrived on scene. He's probably gone inside to get debriefed from the members who have been there for the past couple of hours and basically come outside to speak to Pule Letshwiti-Jones about what happened. But as you hear from the Minister, who, by the way, seems to be unharmed, he doesn't seem to have any injuries from what I see on his face in that video, which we'll bring to you shortly. He says that they were held hostage. All right, Vish is here. He's there with Pule. Pule?
Where are the three ministers now?
I have no idea. What I do know is that they didn't make any reports in terms of the medical state. They were whisked away by the protectors. I'm not sure to exactly where. I can't confirm that.
How bad was this? Was tear gas dispersed inside the whole?
No, I just said to you that we successfully penetrated the room where they were being held hostage, and there were no shots fired. There were initially no injuries reported, but while processing the 56 suspects, we received reports to which we had to promptly respond and take them for medical treatment.
Did you find any arms? Did you confiscate any arms? Anything like that?
Well, at this stage, the report that I've given you is all that I have to provide at this point in time. Thank you very much.
Sorry, well, Shahan, there you go. Just, a few answers have been given there by the SAPS spokesperson, Vish Naidu, saying that there was no gunshots, that have been fired. But that's a juxtaposition of what we heard from the members who were actually asked to evacuate this place here. And that's a little report that we received there, saying that they're still looking into the matter right now, and that they will comment on the matter further later. So there's still, quite a lot of information that we need to get from the SAPS here, and hopefully they can disclose in confidence as to what has transpired here and what is going on.
So do we know if all of those people who were held in that room, have they been processed and taken to cells as yet?
Well, what we know is that they say they managed to whisk out the ministers in the room, but we're just trying to see if we still can force to speak to Vish Naidu, because there's still quite a lot that has to be given here in terms of accounts, as to what happened here. And we're seeing the actually emergency services that are in here. There seems to be people inside here, and we're just trying to find out if there is someone inside here as well. But as you can see, there has been a large contingency of police vehicles that were here, and that were trying to actually stop what was going on as well. And what we know is that Vish had said earlier on that they're still trying to get more details of the crime scene that took place here, and they will be giving us an account as to what had transpired. But as it is right now, it seems as though police arrived in a lot of vans. On my left-hand side, it seems as though they're also taking statements from some of the those who were asked to evacuate the place as well. And then we also know that inside as well, they're still trying to clear the crime scene and come for more clues as to what would have led to this having to go uproar like this. There's still emergency services vans here, and of course there's still police vehicles here patrolling and ensuring that nothing else transpires here this evening.
Yeah, so it's still an active scene. I know Vish did say no shots were fired. He also said that 56 suspects have been arrested and charged with 3 counts of kidnapping. He says they rescued 3 hostages, 2 cabinet ministers and 1 deputy. The Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, also issuing a statement, a video statement, which we will bring to you shortly on air. But we did play the audio earlier, Pule, and he says that, when they tried to leave, the doors were closed, and at that point they realized they were held hostage. Wazi, though, the spokesperson for this liberation veterans, are saying that he didn't think it was the situation. They were not held hostage. He called them comrades and said that they just were talking, and that was it. Pule, can you hear me?
All right, Shahan, I can hear you. What we understand here.
All right, we're losing connection there again, but let me just bring you in. Yeah, that signal isn't great, but we are hearing that the patients haven't left. They're actually still in the ambulances. There you see one ambulance there. That door is being closed, obviously to protect the privacy of the patient in that ambulance. If you are just joining us, it is our breaking news story. 5 people have been taken to hospital. 56 people were in that room. The minister is saying that they were held hostage because they couldn't agree on how that meeting was going to be conducted between the Liberation Struggle War veterans and them. They said that the ministers were not prepared for the meeting. I spoke to the spokesperson who says that as far as they're concerned, they were just trying to talk to the ministers who he accused of, quote, chowing their money. These veterans are asking for over 4 million rand each, and they say that government owes them that because of the work and service they did while in exile under the apartheid era. All right, so the Minister, Mondli Gungubele's bite is ready. We can actually watch that and take a listen.
Good evening. Tonight, myself, Minister Mutiso of Defense, and the Deputy Minister, Thabang Makwetla, we found ourselves in a situation which I consider untenable, legally unacceptable, where we thought we were in a meeting whose intention was to attend to the problems that affect military veterans. We could not agree on how the meeting should take place. We reached a point where I thought we were agreeing that it should adjourn. As we were leaving the meeting, proceeding to the doors, they closed the doors. It is at that point when we realized that we were held hostage. It's a situation which was averted by the security forces very effectively and successfully.
Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungobele, actually telling us what happened in that room, of course, at St. George's Hotel. The scene is still quite active. We're seeing ambulances there, we're seeing police there arresting people, officers confirming that 56 members were actually in that room, 2 ministers and 1 deputy minister. They were evacuated and, of course, taken to safety. Vish Naidu, the spokesperson, also saying that there were no reports of any medical issues with the ministers and the deputy minister who was evacuated. Is Pule back? Pule, can you hear me?
Yes, Shahan, well, what we're seeing right now is actually police officials trying to actually comfort clues while taking statements from some of the victims, or rather, who were here, who were being evacuated as well. And some of those who actually, came here to peacefully rent a room, and they witnessed what had happened. So we're also seeing the emergency services, or rather ambulances, leaving the scene right now. You'd remember we saw some of those who were getting treatment inside and leaving with the services to get further assistance. And the scene is quite really active, Shahan. And we've just spoken to the SAPS spokesperson, Vish Naidu, who had said that they are working to get to the bottom of this and leaving no stone unturned. And as it is right now, we are seeing this ambulance vehicle here as well, continuing with some of the assistance that they have been carrying out in terms of helping those who were supposedly injured from what had happened here. And we can officially say that this actually turned out ugly. The veterans are saying that this was supposed to be resolved about a few months ago, and in fact this is a matter that had been left from around November last year, since the agreements were struck between them and the Deputy President, David Mabuza, as well, who in his capacity is the chairperson of the task team looking into the issues of the veterans. But you'd remember as well a similar incident of disunity amongst the veterans from those groups, mainly the Mkhonto of veterans, APLA and Azandla, were actually in an altercation in Limpopo last year. In fact, the Deputy President, David Mabuza, had to condemn those actions, saying that there wasn't any way they could resolve or help some of these veterans if they remained disunited. And this is what we're quite seeing right now amongst the veterans, that they're quite upset that government has taken so long to actually get to the bottom of this and actually assist them with what there is. Quietly and correctly, you stating that they're demanding 4.2 million each of what they call their gratuity fee, amongst other services such as medical care services and, of course, houses. And they're saying that, they're not going to back down until these issues are resolved. In fact, when we were with them at the ANC headquarters on Wednesday, they were threatening legal action against both the organization and, of course, the Deputy President, saying that they were, tired of these demands that had been made for quite some time but had not been met, of course. And, of course, this comes at a time whereby the ANC, as a political organization, is preparing for that unity conference that's expected to take place in December. But what we're seeing right now is actually, chaotic events that are unfolding just months before that conference that's supposed to be held. And, you know, the veterans were saying that it doesn't make sense if they have to attend such a program that holds so much stature in terms of the organization's, the party's heritage, while some of their demands are not met. And, you know, what's quite interesting here, Shahan, is whether the Deputy President, David Mabuza, will cancel his trip to the Northern Cape tomorrow, that election trail as is expected to do so, and come and address some of these issues here and speak to the veterans, because this has sparked so much outrage throughout the country. And it's a call that the veterans are saying has to be taken seriously. And, you know, while we were speaking to Mr. Mzoba there, who's the national coordinator, he did say that, you know, they were willing to put their lives on the line, but not quite revealing whether they would, you know, pull such a stunt of having to place the lives of the ministers at risk. And this is what we saw today, a last-minute desperate attempt, because when we spoke to them around 4 o'clock, they had confirmed that everything was on track, and they were actually speaking about some of those demands. Around 5 o'clock, they were still in that meeting. That took a break around 6, and then what we understand is that we received a call later then that said that where they were saying that they had not reached an agreement and that talks had, of course, broken. But I'm just going to ask my colleague Shahid to actually pan on my right-hand side just to see police officials leaving as well. And it's still quite an active scene that's going on inside, and it's still, you know, police having to come for more clues to find out as to how they can deal with this matter swiftly before the end of tonight.
All right, we're going to stay on your visuals, Pule, because we have some updates from the editorial team. We are being told by sources that there was a gun in the room on the floor. It was a brown handgun. There are also injuries, a broken thumb, a burn to the ankle, a cardiac patient, and 2 patients who were feeling dizzy. So if you are just joining us, these are the injuries we're talking about as a result of an altercation at a meeting of the Liberation Struggle War veterans, as well as a minister in the presidency, Mondli Gungubele, and Defense Minister Thandi Modise. They couldn't decide on a way forward regarding the meeting after the Deputy President couldn't make it to that meeting. When the ministers tried to leave the room, they were held hostage, according to Mondli Gungubele, and then police, of course, intervening. So we have several teams working on this story for us. And just for context, Pule, I think it's important to actually tell our viewers about the agreement reached in terms of government, the provincial task team that was set up, and the group. And it's a 34-page report that sums up the many interventions the presidential task team has tried to accommodate the veterans. I'm going to try and read some of them. And Sally Badette is actually working from home on this one for us. She's skimmed through it and sent me some important points. So you see, we don't rest here at eNCA. So the conclusion and the suggested way forward from the provincial task team is the following. It says that in response to the demands, the President directed that their grievances should be attended by a provincial or presidential task team, I should say, that had been established to consider issues that pertains to military veterans. Since then, the presidential task team has undertaken a multitude of interventions, consulted broadly within and outside of government, and extensively engaged members of the LSWV on numerous occasions in a bid to attend to the grievances of military veterans within the prescripts of the law and the resources that are available to government. Point 10.4 says, to date, the PTT has already made significant progress that has begun to bring some relief to the plight of many of our military veterans. It is, however, been made clear that government does not have that kind of resources required to accede to a 4 million rand demand per a member. Similarly, the presidential task team has also directed that processes towards the amendment of the current Military Veterans Act to be initiated so as to allow for the critical realignment of certain definitions, concepts and sections which are not sufficiently supportive of the transformation agenda. And then lastly, the point 10.7 says, it has also become apparent that in the context of the regulatory regime, and given the fact that the LSWV is not registered as a military veterans association in terms of the Military Veterans Act, the PTT cannot justly continue to engage with the LSWV outside of the fact that they had marched and presented a memorandum to the president. Otherwise, the PTT would attract criticisms that it is extending de facto recognition to an unregistered structure. So that is the conclusion of a 34-page report which sums up the many interventions the presidential task team tried to actually accommodate the vets. And they are not happy with that because this has brought us to the situation we're currently in. So as you join us, and if you missed it because there's so much drama here, we had Minister in the Presidency Mondli Gungubele as well as Defence Minister Thandi Modise meeting the Liberation Struggle War veterans in St. George's Hotel in Irene in Gauteng. There was no way forward for that meeting to happen because the veterans were not happy that the Deputy President couldn't make it. When the ministers tried to leave the venue, Mondli Gungubele issuing a video statement saying they were denied the right to exit, and that's when the security forces actually barged into that room to safely escort them. And Nat's joint statement actually says that they were rescued. So in terms of what's happening, there have been some injuries. I'm going to go back to that message. These are sources that are giving us this information. A broken thumb, a burn to the ankle, cardiac patient, and 2 patients who were feeling dizzy. The police's spokesperson, Vish Naidu, being quite clear to the media, saying that there were no shots fired during this altercation. But our sources are saying that there was a gun found in the room. And also police saying that a total of 56 suspects have been arrested. They have been charged with 3 counts of kidnapping, and also that they rescued the 3 hostages. That's, of course, the 2 ministers and the 1 deputy minister at this meeting. It has been an ongoing battle this week for the Liberation Struggle War veterans. They were first at Luthuli House on Tuesday. That spilled over to Wednesday, and then they were told that the Deputy President will be meeting them because this is a state matter. He didn't pitch up, and that's where we are right now.